Yo, 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 guys, what is up? And welcome back to another episode of Marijuana SA Weekly with Dean and Andy, your favorite cannabis grow hosts. And today we're going to be giving you a little bit of tips and a little bit of insight on how you can view cannabis not as growing cannabis, but not as a purchase necessarily anymore, but more of a growing it into a investment for your future and like to save yourselves a little bit of buck at the end of the day. That's a long-winded way of saying it's cheaper to grow than to buy. Hopefully by now the YouTube moderators have left and they're not ready to strike us for this one. But anyway, this is the truth of it. It is way cheaper, and Dean's got some of the numbers and like a bit of the calculations and a lot of the questions that we ask at the grow shop. Dean sort of came up with and invented and structured around serving the customer as end goal. And we always talk about how the end goal is important. So without further ado, Dean, you want to lay into whatever presentation you've curated for us?
So before I go in, I just want to say, majority of people, when they're coming to a grow shop and they're wanting to grow indoors, they are instantly scared away by high values. You know, you're buying high quality equipment, but everyone who is growing is smoking. So you're spending money every single month anyway. And if you were to take that generally a grow is going to take around 3 months. So while we're going through this presentation, in your mind, say, okay, cool. What do I spend on weed per month? How much weed do I buy? Am I getting enough good quality weed, or is it all a bunch of jut? You know, and then finally, just do that little calculation for yourself. Okay, cool. So let's go into my presentation. I've structured this all around. I have this cool design here for a 2-plant grow system. Basically, all the components are pictured on the grow tent on the right-hand side. Then we've got some seeds, our growth, and finally a little piggy bank just to legitimize the presentation. Okay, so
it really brings it together.
I was really looking for a good element, and the pig really worked. Okay, cool. So we're looking at a 2-plant grow system. So as with any grow system, I always say to someone, the majority of the expenses is going to be your grow light. So we have a good quality grow light, good quality components, and this grow tent is structured around a 2-plant grow system. So a 2-plant grow system from us is going to cost you between 10 and $11,000. And that already people are like, wow, but a majority of people are smoking 2,000 to 3,000 rands worth of weed per month, especially if you're smoking premium grade. Okay. So I'm not talking about brown outdoor. I'm talking about, imagine a world where you only smoke indoor and that indoor was only grown by you. That's possible with this kinds of investment. So if you were to save for a 3-month to 4-month period, come up with the cost of 11,000, how quickly am I going to see a return on investment? Now it is an investment, because if you're buying weed every single month and now all of a sudden you make a plan to not ever have to buy weed again, all of a sudden it's not an expense anymore, because once your system starts to harvest and you start to reap the rewards, you're no longer going to be phoning your dealer and having to wait in a parking lot. You're just going to have bud on tap. So that's the first thing, Is it worth it? And for me, it's massively expensive. As you guys know, we want to bring it down consistently. However, the cost down consistently. However, if you're willing to put an investment into a good quality grow light, the one pictured here is the King Bright 240 with a Meanwhile driver. That's going to last you 5 years. This whole system could last you multi-grows, So, well, it won't last 5 years because you're going to want to upgrade after a year, but so that being said, okay, there's obviously other factors that you have to take into account. And I've taken some of the FAQs that people ask us when we're having these kinds of conversations. So as you've probably noticed, every person who comes to us, we're going to consult with you to find out what is the correct thing for your needs. And these are the kinds of thought process that we are going to go through in order to make sure what we're giving you is what you need. And we're not sort of, we want to make sure that every client gets the exact tailored system for their needs. Okay, so 100%. Running costs or electricity draw. We've got 2 oscillating fans, we've got a light, and we've got an inline fan. Many people would think that's probably going to be hundreds of watts, but we're only looking at about a 340 watt. And then in order to take your running cost, what I did is I took 18 hours and 24 hours. I plussed them together and then I divided them by 2. And that gives me an average of the time that the equipment is going to be running. Then you times that by a month period and then I times it by the highest bracket on the electricity bill, and you get a running cost of approximately 1,500 Rand per month plus minus.
Which changes depending on your area and your electricity costs in your place. But yeah, roughly, it's a good benchmark.
Rough estimate, exactly. Yeah. It's not accurate. I would go into more detail with, if I was going to really be breaking down the system for the exact costs, but just for the sake of the argument, okay?
And I must add that's probably the worst case, at the upper end of the estimate, I think.
Yeah, it also depends on your house's electricity usage. If you're running air conditioners and fish tanks and multiple TVs and Xboxes, then it might be more, but on average.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Okay, so now how long does it take for me to see product? Okay, how long am I going to wait until I have weed to smoke? Now, generally, you're looking at a 3-month grow period, 3 months at 1,500 Rand per month. All of a sudden, you're looking at a 15,500 Rand system. Okay, 15,500 broken up into an original investment of 11,000 and then 3 times electricity bill payments of 1,500, easier to break down. After that period, you would see an expected yield on a medium's case to get around 200 grams from this system, depending on multiple factors. Also, just disclaimer, depending on if you've put in the effort to get here, because there is effort that does go into it. But if you look at 200 grams and then you look at paying and I'm talking about 200 grams of premium flour, you're going to have popcorn additional, you're going to have trim additional, all extra things which you can make butter with, you can make hash with, but what am I going to have as premium nug? That's around 200. And then if you take that 200 and you divide it and you times it by 100 Rand per gram, I'd like to know who's paying that, because not many people are. If you're operating in the black market or procuring bad, it's normally going 150 to 180 for premium grade, But let's say 100. Now you're looking at around a 20,000 Rand retail value. Secondary disclaimer, we don't advise selling of weed, as that does still remain illegal in South Africa. But this is just to look at it from a complete numbers point of view. I would have spent for 200 grams, 20,000. So now, if I'm now able to potentially smoke, 40 grams a month of indoor, which is a massive amount. That's more than a gram of indoor a day. And with more than a gram of indoor a day, when my friends come over, they always like, yo, you've got the dankest weed, bro. And then you flex to your friends. And also, your system has broken even on a good grow in the first 3-month period.
Yeah.
Now, you go into the second period, 3 to 3.5 month period. Now, you're just paying running costs. So now you take your period, it's 4,500 to 5,000 Rand to grow, and you are now saving 15,000 Rand every 3 months, which means that for a far lower outlay, you're able to smoke quality and you're able to have copious amounts. And then over time, as a lot of us grows, you've got a bit of a library going. I've still got bud left from grow 2 years ago. I've got my little bud library. So you kind of over time getting more and more access. And then also just a final point, the only way you can really know what you're smoking is when you're getting it from a reliable source. And the most reliable source is if you're doing everything yourself. If you want to get premium bud that's pesticide free, grown in the manner that you want it to be grown and the strains that you want to grow, growing makes sense. And if you look at the numbers carefully, what kind of investment yields break even in 3 months? Not many. Hardly any, nothing. If you're into stocks and stuff like that, it's taking you 5 years to start to see these kinds of returns, but now all of a sudden, if you grow 4 grows in a year, you're never, ever going to have to buy weed again. And it may sound like a fairy tale dream, but, being in the position that we are and having dealt with so many clients over the period, we have seen loads of clients come in with no knowledge, put the F in, do the investment, and now they have never bought weed again. I had one client who was spending close to 10,000 Rand a month on premium weed, and now he just grows it all himself. So he obviously smokes a lot. Yeah, that's basically the long and the short and the numbers. And I think when you break it down into these 5 simple points,
100%.
it's really just easy to understand.
I mean, in the short, I mean, Dean, I've got nothing to add to that. In honesty, you've covered everything to the T. But yeah, the only thing maybe I could add is like you are in this process, upskilling yourself immensely. The cost of a system, and say it's 11,000, if you compare that to the cost of a degree or things like that, it's, growing isn't going to be a hobby forever. It's going to very much in the future become career paths. It's going to become a job where it's like paid as much as accounting, engineering. It's high value cultivation. People always underestimate how much farmers get remunerated in this country. It's unbelievable the level of skill it takes to grow, 10,000 perfect oranges and things like that. When it gets to create, the skill required to create 10 kilos of unbelievable quality bud ready for European export at a certain, mineral consistency with no heavy metals, everything like that is insanely complicated. And it's going to be a high value thing, but there's no way you're going to learn that overnight, as Dean can very passionately contest to, is that you'll never just pick up growing and just be a master grower overnight. Like it's forever learning, forever new tech, forever new LEDs coming out, forever new soils, research materials, and automation tools and things like that. So it really is an awesome way to upskill yourself as an investment, because you are your own investment. You're saving some buck at the end of the day. And yeah, I think that's going to only really be a good thing, and you're learning. So yeah, that's pretty much our growing as an investment in a nutshell. That's why people decide to get a system and put it together and grow a full system and grow your own harvests. It's very effective and it's a good solution. So you guys, if you enjoyed this type of content, make sure to like and subscribe. It always helps us, as we don't get any back from YouTube. We do have some links below that help support the channel. So check those out. And until next week, peace, guys.
Peace, guys.